Hello. So today I'm going to be taking another look at the Trek Rail 9.8 XT 2022 model. But this time I'm going to be taking a look at it after a full year of playing out on it. So I'm going to be taking a look at things that I've changed from the factory build, things that have broke, things that had to be replaced, things that I like and things that I maybe don't like, and things that I've changed to make my riding, my performance a lot better on the bike. So yep, let's get to it. So this bike came with Bosch Motor XR5 tyres and Bosch Motor wheels. Now the XR5 tyres started off being quite good. In the dry they were no bother, and in trail centres they seemed quite good. However, once it became slightly greasy and the rain came, they were absolutely diabolical, especially when you were off piste or on natural trails as opposed to trail centre trails. They just become so slippy and so sketchy that you just couldn't ride them anymore. So I replaced them with a set of WTBs. So there you go. So I'm now riding WTB Verdicts and Vigilantes. They're a bit chunkier, but they're a lot better and more stable on off-piste stuff and on natural terrain like roots and rocks. Do slip out a little bit on them, but they're a lot better than the XR5s. The other issue with these, mind you, is that in trail centres they're not the best, but all round I do prefer these tyres. On the front I have a Verdict Wet 2.5, and on the back I have a Vigilante 2.5. So these are quite chunky tyres. Back one's a bit bald at the minute, but they are quite chunky. Some people don't like them because they're heavy and chunky and a bit too rippy, but I love them. So the wheels that came with the bike, as I said, are Bosch Motor wheels. Now on the front I still run a Bosch Motor. Find no hassle with this wheel at all. Spokes are still fully intact, haven't come loose, and the rims still hold air if you're running tubeless. So all around that's been quite a good wheel. The back wheel, however, I had to replace after about 6 months of riding. All the spokes came loose. I was constantly having to tighten them to the point where every trail I had to stop and retighten them. So I just thought enough's enough, and I replaced this with a Hope. So I'm now running a Hope wheel on the back with Pro 5, if you can see it, Pro 5 hub. So the front wheel lasted, the back wheel didn't. I think personally it all depends on how you ride your bike and what you do with it. Me, I do a lot of jumping and I am a heavy lander, so it was only a matter of time for me before the back wheel collapsed. If you just like light trails and trail centres and not leaving the ground much, then these wheels will probably be perfectly fine for you. So yep, there you go, the wheels. So a couple of issues I have with this bike are to do with the back wheel. So the axle, for some reason, especially when I had the other wheel on, the old Bosch Motor wheel, used to constantly come loose. So when I was riding down the trail, it would start to unscrew, pop out, and have to get off and wind it back on and tighten the wheel. You could actually see the axle from here sticking out so far. It was absolutely ridiculous. Since I put the Hope wheel on, it has seemed to fix that problem, so I'm quite chuffed about that. Another issue I've had with this bike is being the actual back wheel itself, getting it on and off. For some reason the axle does not line up with the hose properly, the frame doesn't line up with the wheel, and the wheel just sits in and wobbles all over. So it's an absolute nightmare when you're trying to put the axle back in to put the wheel back on if you've had a flat tyre or you're replacing the wheel or anything. Don't know what it is with this bike. I've never had this hassle with any other bike. It doesn't matter if you've got the bike upside down or if the bike's in a stand. It is just an absolute nightmare and a chow on. But yeah, that's something to be aware of. If you do have this bike, just be aware that you'll be fanning on with the back wheel for a good 5 minutes once you take it off. Unless of course that's just me being rubbish and I can't do it. So one issue I had with this bike was I was constantly hitting the cranks and the pedals off things on the ground, so things like rocks, roots and anything else that got in my way. So I think with this bike the whole motor area sits quite low to the ground, especially compared to me other bike, my Trek Slash. So I replaced the pedals and the cranks, and I bought 155mm crank arms. There we go. They're now 155, so they're a lot shorter and they are e-bike specific. And I bought myself some Hope F22 pedals. Nice little combination. Now since I put these cranks on, I seem to have had a lot less bashes. So I think if you are having trouble and you're hitting the cranks and the pedals a lot or things on the ground, I would recommend buying some smaller cranks. It's definitely made a big difference for me. And yeah, I don't seem to be breaking pedals or bending crank arms as much anymore. So yeah, I'll definitely consider changing them over to something shorter. Doesn't affect your riding at all, at least I don't think it does, but it does make it easier. But hey, look at that, my stick broke. So one of the worst things about e-bikes, especially in Britain, is the speed restriction. 16.5 miles an hour just isn't enough. I don't know why they just don't cap it at 20 or just take the restriction off completely. When you're riding down roads, you're constantly holding up traffic. When you're going off jumps or trying to get that extra bit of speed and the motor kicks out, it is just an absolute nightmare. It's horrible, and I think personally it can be quite dangerous. A little bit of a disclaimer here for you. I am trying this out. It is not recommended and it can void your warranty on your bike. So if you are planning on de-restricting your motor, just be warned, it will void your warranty. Now most de-restrictors go in the motor, somewhere around there. You undo the bottom and you change a few wires around or whatever you do, and it de-restricts the motor. However, this one goes on the back wheel here. This little component right here, this little disc. I'll insert a little picture so people can see what it looks like without the wheel on. This is called a SPEEDi and it's from NLS components. And what you do with this is you take off the magnet and remove the wheel, loosen the rotor bolts, and you put this little disc on here. It's got little things inside it. And then you put the cap on, which is on the outside. Then you replace the wheel. And this tricks your motor into thinking you're still riding the speed limit. It's a really good bit of kit. I've been trying this out for a while now, and it makes all the difference. When you're going off jumps and your motor usually kicks out and you feel a horrible drag, you don't get that no more. It's just a smooth flow straight into the jump and off. No hassles whatsoever. When you're on the roads, you can actually hit about 20 miles an hour, which is more than enough. Just feels so much better again. And then when you're riding on flats and again the motor kicks out, you don't have that issue of if someone's dragging you back. It's a good bit of kit. The only downside to this is it tricks your computer, so if you like to have accurate speed and distances, then you're not going to get it on this. Your distance is reduced. I think you've got to add about 1.5 on for every ride you do, and it lies about your speed. I know this SPEEDi works on my bike, but I'm not too sure what bikes it does and doesn't work on. I am aware that it's not recommended for Shimano's EP801 motors. Don't know why, but it just said it's not recommended for them motors. But for your Trek, especially the 2022 model, it works a treat. I love it. It's made such a difference, and I really do feel 100% safer with the extra speed. Sounds crazy, but it just makes the ride smoother and just more flowy. I love it. Again, just be warned, if you're trying these out, it can void your warranty on your bike. Water bottles. So another issue I've had on this bike is getting a water bottle to fit properly on the frame. So this is my water bottle. It's a Fidlock from One Up Components, and it's a 450ml bottle. It's not the biggest bottle, but it's the best bottle I can find to fit on my bike. And like most Fidlocks, it comes with a magnetic case, so the cage is replaced with magnets. Much easier, much tidier. I don't know if you can see this on this video, but the area here where the bottle goes isn't very big. There's the cage, or the magnets. Actually, while we're talking about the magnets and the cage, I did have issues with the original screws that came with this being way too big for this bike, and when you try to screw them in, obviously the battery's inside here, so you can't do that. So I ended up having to use rotor bolts to mount this on my bike. Anyway, so yeah, so the issue I had with the bottle was I get constant rubbing up here on the frame, and then down here it kept hitting off the suspension. So the bottle did fit that I had, the original bottle, which was bigger. It did fit, but it was horrible. It just didn't look right, and it kept knocking and rubbing. So here we go. Here's my little Fidlock, fitting in nice and flush. Got gaps down here, gaps up there, no rub whatsoever. My other bottle, as you can see, knocks up there. Nightmare. I can't remember what size bottle this is. It's a lot bigger. It was a better bottle. It was a better bottle, but yep, it just doesn't fit properly. You can take this off and turn it round, so that bit's at the top and that bit's at the bottom, and then on the bottle turn around the bottle holder bit as well, so turn this bit around, and then you can fit the bottle on here, and it does fit. The only problem, again, like I said, is it does fit, but you do get rub off there and you do get rub off there, so it's not the best. But you can change the magnets around to make it fit if you really want, but you do get a lot of knocking, which is annoying. So yep, as I say, it's not the biggest bottle, but if you want to carry a little bit of water, it's the best looking one to fit. Nice and snug, with no knocking and no rubbing. One of the biggest and easiest changes I made to the bike, and probably it's the best thing I ever did, was to mess about and change the Mino Link. So this is the Mino Link. This is the front of the Mino Link, and over there, that is the back of the Mino Link. So it's the same on both sides. So what this does is it changes the back of the bike's position from high to low, or low to high. So here you have a gap, depending on the setting. This gap will be as wide as it is now, or it'll be a lot narrower. And believe me, if you're struggling on this bike with your right position, this makes all the difference. So there you go, if you can make it out. Just says Mino Link. Then over here it says high and low setting. There we go, this is it from the top view. Again, you can see the gap on both sides. Gap there, and a gap on the other side. So if you are like me and you are having trouble with your position on this bike, so I just basically felt like I was sitting over the front of quite a bit. If, like me, you are struggling with your position on this bike, and you felt like you were maybe too far over the front or too far over the back, or just for some reason the bike just didn't feel right, you might want to consider changing that setting first before you do anything else. It really does make a big difference. So there are two sides to the Mino Link, and each side comes with 3 parts. You have a bolt, a washer, and then that's what I call the Mino Link bit itself. So here we go. There's the bolt, God, the lighting's not the best today. A washer or a spacer, really important you don't lose this bit. If you lose this bit, then that's not good. And then we have, I've got snow in it, the Mino Link itself. This is the important part. Depending which way you set that in the frame, you can have it that way, or you can rotate it and have it that way. That's what makes all the difference. It's amazing for how small a bit of a kit this is, the difference it makes. So all you do is loosen that bolt, remove the bolt, and then the Mino little link on the back there comes out. In between the two parts of the frame you have the spacer, so just remember that, do not lose the spacer. It does fall out, it can be a little bit of a cumbersome task putting it in, but just watch you don't lose that spacer. So yeah, depending on what setting you want, remove the bolt, remove the Mino Link, turn it round, put it back in, and you'll either have a wide gap or a narrow gap. Now for me, I think this is the low setting I could be in, I'm not sure, might be the high setting, but either way I just look at the gap and the distance apart. I prefer it wider than narrow, and since I've done that I feel like I'm sitting way better on the bike. So again, if you're feeling uncomfortable on your bike, try adjusting this before you do anything else. Might save you money. I know for me it certainly was a game changer for the way I ride and the position on the bike. Another change I've made to the bike is the rear shock. So as you can see, anybody with a keen eye will have noticed I've got a spring or a coil on the back, whatever you want to call it. So this shock is a 230 by 60 mil, and it definitely does fit. A few people might have said they can't get a shock to fit, but this one definitely does fit. So there we go. Maserati Bomber CR. I really do like having this on. The previous shock I had on this bike, as I say, I've had the bike for just over a year, and it's been for a service twice. It was just absolutely diabolical. I find this shock to be a lot smoother, and it really helps with your riding. So yep, if you're wondering if you can put a coil or a spring, then yes you can. Something else that I changed on this bike are the bars. So the bars that came with this bike were pretty flat, and I've changed them up for a 35mm rise. Again, this was to help the ride, to help with my riding position. So I would say these have definitely helped. I might get some bigger rise bars at some point, but from changing the Mino Link and putting these bars on, it has just improved my riding ability 100%. I feel like I'm sitting way better on the bike now to what I was when I got it from the factory. So all in all, with an extra rise bar, the Mino Link changed, and the Zebs, I also put an extra bit of travel into them, which personally I don't think made much of a difference, but I don't know, extra travel is always good to have. But the bars and the Mino Link, I definitely say were the most important changes I made to this bike. So I think the original bars that came with this bike were about, well, these bars are about 4 to 6 mils taller or steeper rise, and they certainly make a difference. Something I haven't changed on this bike, and I'm surprised that I didn't, are the brakes. So these are the brakes that came with the bike, and they are Shimano Dior XTs. And I must say, I have been pretty impressed with these brakes. The only issue I've had was when I went over the handlebars, the actual lever bent here and then snapped off. So I would say the levers are pretty flimsy. I know they're probably designed to brake, so you haven't got to replace the whole brake, you can just replace the lever. But after riding with Hopes and TRPs, I do just find these to be a little bit weak on the lever. But the stopping power has been really good. Now I like to basically pull the front brake on and go over the handlebars, and these brakes certainly do that. So surprisingly, I'm quite happy with these brakes. Something else I'm surprised I haven't changed is the gears. So these are Dior XT gears, which came with the bike, and after a year and a few months of riding, everything is still intact. It just shows you, if you look after your gears and everything, then they do last. Still got the original chain on as well, still going strong. So I guess if you don't force your gears and you clean your bike, then you're going to get a lot longer life out of your cassettes, your chain and your gears and your derailleur. So I'm quite happy that I haven't had to change them yet. The motor. So you hear quite a lot of people complain about the motor on these bikes, on e-bikes, and I'm happy to say I haven't really had any issues with the motor. So one issue I have had, slight issue, was with the lever. When I removed this wire and put it back in, I did have a bit of an issue with the reconnecting to the motor. I don't know if that was just a little bit of muck in it or just hadn't connected it properly, but that does seem to have settled down and is working fine now. The Kiox display had a little bit of an issue with this. Wasn't so much with the actual workings of the actual display, but more that the mount that it sits on actually snapped. So as you can see, this is the mount. And what happened was this bit here came loose from the frame, it got caught and it snapped. I think if I remember correctly as well, where the screw goes in there had also cracked. Not a big deal, it's an easy fix, but it's something to be aware of. Just be aware that that part there is sitting in your frame properly, because it does come loose sometimes. If it does break, it's an easy fix. Just take the display off, unscrew the bolt, remove all the little cables, and then just replace the mount, and then put the cables back on, and then put the display back on. I have done another video showing you how to do that. It's a 5-minute job and it's really easy, and you can pick up the mounts for about £10 to £15. The only issue I've had with the motor was that ruddy sticker coming off. Don't know why you spend all this money on an e-bike to have a little sticker stuck on with a piece of glue. But yeah, that came off. Other than that, no issues with the motor. One of the biggest gripes I had with regard to the whole motor system was the key. I don't mind the key. The key sits in here, unlocks the battery so I can take the battery out. Now I love the fact that the battery just comes out here with ease, but this key can be a bit of a bugger. You've got to make sure you've got the key in properly, in the right position obviously, to turn it, to unlock it. Now that does sound like just obvious common sense, but sometimes you do think you've got the key in properly and you haven't, and other times the key does stick. So just be aware of that. It can stick sometimes. I don't know if it's just muck getting in or it's got a bit damp and rusty or what. Other than that, I've had no issues with the motor, the battery, the display and the control unit. Control unit, get me how technical. Another issue I had was with the bash guard. So the original bash guard on this bike, which is here, ended up cracking when I hit a rock. So I had to replace it with a new guard, which is this one here. And this one is a custom built carbon fibre bash guard from Guardz. So there's a few issues with this. The first one being that I didn't have a clue how to mount it. I wasn't sure if you take the old guard off and put this new guard over the top or what. Turns out that you just replace this guard over the old guard for added protection. So as I say, this guard's now got a crack in it and this one's sitting over the top. So a few issues with this is, for one, it doesn't look very nice. There's gaps all over. It doesn't sit flush to your frame, and in all of these gaps you get a lot of muck and rubble and rubbish and crap and God knows what else. You've got to constantly clean it out. The other issue I had was with these bolts. There's two bolts here and two on the other part of the guard. Is with this being a custom build, one of them bolts bolt holes didn't match up to the actual frame on the bike, so I had to sit and file the hole in the carbon guard so it fit, so I could match it up and fit the bolt in. Another issue I had when screwing the bolts into the frame is the frame itself, the thread holes, the bolt holes, the threads on them just aren't very good, and as I was screwing the screw in, I ended up threading one of the bolt holes. Luckily I managed to fix that and get the screw in, otherwise I don't know what that would have meant. I don't know if you can re-thread the holes or if you need to get a whole new part of the frame. But luckily I managed to get them in. So if you are thinking about buying one of these, just be cautious. It's not the prettiest and the threads in the frame aren't the nicest to re-screw in. So make sure you get them screws lined up perfect, or else you might risk damaging your frame. But yep, as I say, not the nicest, but it certainly has helped, and there is quite a lot of scratches and damage on there already. So there you go, Guardz. You can get these off the internet. Well, that's it. I hope you made it to the end of the video, and if you did, thanks very much. Hopefully that's gives you a bit of an idea if you're having any issues like me on things you can change on the Trek to make your riding better and just overall the whole performance of the bike. So yep, so thanks for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye.